For more exclusive content from CNBC Crypto Trader, hit the subscribe button now. With the bear market now in full swing, I decided to catch up with my friend Tushar Jain, who's the co-founder of Multicoin Capital. Tushar, welcome.
Hey Ryan, good to see you.
So we're here in this co-working space here in San Francisco called The Bureau. They've let us use their office as a studio because you're traveling here on business, attracting capital, I suppose.
Mostly meeting with teams.
Looking at teams.
Yeah.
Tushar, how are you guys trading this dip in the market?
So, as your viewers probably know, crypto can be quite volatile, and sometimes it is best to do nothing. So we are actually not actively trading at the moment. We were well positioned a few months ago, and we're really just looking at this as risk management right now. We don't know where this bear market ends. I don't think anyone does. I don't think that anyone can really call the bottom for sure. We like to think about the world probabilistically, and so I think that right now there is a high probability of the market continuing to fall, and so I want to kind of stay out of the market, or at least be risk neutral.
When you say be risk neutral, let's talk about the actual trades that you're doing to be risk neutral. Give us some example of the trades.
So when I say risk neutral, it's important to understand how to think about risk. There's broadly two categories of risk. There's idiosyncratic risk and there's systemic risk or market risk, right? So idiosyncratic risk is risk that is specific to one asset, right? So Ethereum has idiosyncratic risk in terms of scaling plans, right? Yeah. Versus systemic risk is, well, the whole market could continue going down. And seeing how correlated the market is, systemic risk is a very important part of the risk, right? So when I say risk neutral, what I really mean is that we want to be neutral on systemic risk, where we are willing to take on idiosyncratic risk.
So let's talk about specific trades that you're doing that are taking on that risk.
An example of that would be short Litecoin, long Bitcoin in equal amounts, right? And the reason why this trade, I would call this systemic risk neutral, is that if the whole market moves together, up or down, that trade would not be exposed to the market movements. Mm-hmm. However, if we are right on our idiosyncratic theses, that Bitcoin has a much stronger value proposition than Litecoin, which is just a glorified testnet. Like, no one can literally no one I've talked to can give me a reason why Litecoin needs to be worth anything.
So you're saying that Litecoin, in your view, is actually a $5 billion testnet for Bitcoin?
Yes, and it should be worth far less than that. It should be worth less than a tenth of that.
So you're saying if you short Litecoin and you long Bitcoin, if the market goes down, Litecoin will go down quicker than Bitcoin will go down. If the market goes up, then Bitcoin will lead the rally.
That's my expectation, yes.
And so you're willing to be short Litecoin and long Bitcoin in this time?
Correct.
Let's talk about some other trades that you guys are trading at this time.
Another example of this type of trade is short Ripple, long Bitcoin. Once again, we're back to the long Bitcoin side, not particularly because we're the most bullish on Bitcoin. It's just that Bitcoin is one of the cryptocurrencies with a very established value proposition. And in a bear market, I do expect to see a certain flight to quality to assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum that have real value propositions that have gotten real adoption more than the speculative value proposition of several of the smaller or less well-known crypto assets.
Let's talk about the idiosyncratic risk around shorting XRP. What are you shorting there? What's your expectation around XRP? Why are you so comfortable to short it?
There's a few things that make me comfortable shorting XRP. One is that I don't believe that the token economics are sound. Even with their XRapid product, which they like to talk up quite a lot, the velocity of the Ripple token is extremely high. So even if they were processing all of the world's international remittances, including all bank-to-bank transfers, the velocity is so high that the Ripple token, or all of the Ripple tokens in aggregate, need to be worth very little in order to actually facilitate that. That's thing number one.
Let's take a step back and focus on point number one, because they talk a lot about the XRapid system. And what they say is that XRapid is a bank-to-bank money transfer system, cross-border money transfer system. And if a bank wants to send US dollars to a UK bank in, say, pounds, they would trade into XRapid and then sell the XRapid position and into Great Britain pounds. What's the problem with that formula? Why does that not create scarcity in a token?
So to be more precise, I think the way that the X-Rapid system works is, let's say you're a bank in the US, you would have to, basically you're buying XRP tokens with your $1 billion, sending those XRP tokens to whichever bank in the UK, which then sells it immediately for British pounds. The problem is that no one is holding the token, right? It is something where, like, let's say, even if you're sending a $1 billion transaction, right? Well, you only need the whole network to be worth $1 billion in order to handle that transaction.
So what happens one day when there's huge transaction volumes, way more than the number of XRP in circulation or the value of the XRP in circulation?
That could cause some price volatility, which would definitely be a negative for the banks, because the tools to hedge out price volatility do not exist for XRP. There are no futures, there are no options, and I cannot imagine the bank calling their corporate client for whom they were transferring the money, talking to the treasurer and saying, so we sent your money to the UK from the US, but we lost 5% of it because of the volatility of a cryptocurrency. That bank gets fired immediately, like done. That is an unacceptable business risk.
So what's the second reason why you're not a big XRP bull?
The second biggest reason is I think that there is a real chance that XRP could be declared a security by the SEC. I don't know for sure, but based on the most recent statement where the SEC talked about Ethereum not being a security, they mostly pointed out that the Ethereum network was decentralized enough that you could no longer claim that when someone was purchasing Ethereum, that they were doing so with the expectation that there was a specific group that would be working to advance the Ethereum network and increase its price.
And you think in the case of XRP, the fact that they have a relationship with Ripple or Ripple Labs that is the problem?
Yes. So when you look at the Howey test, there's 4 prongs to it, right? There's needs to be pooled capital, so you need to raise some money. Ripple does this through their sales. They sold $150 million a quarter of XRP tokens out of their treasury. So they are raising money from the general public. Second, it needs to be for a common enterprise, right? So Ripple Inc. provides that enterprise because Ripple Inc. is solely and predominantly responsible for marketing the Ripple products that use XRP and give the XRP token any value. Without Ripple Inc., the XRP token is worthless, absolutely worthless. Why would you need the XRP token if this corporation, which I think is a successful, well-run corporation, but if that corporation did not exist, the XRP token is worthless. If the Ethereum Foundation disappears tomorrow, Ethereum still has value.
The third reason? The third part of the Howey test?
So the third part is with the expectation of profit off of the work of others.
Okay.
So that they kind of blend together.
Okay. Now let's talk about your fund. You've recently announced that you've got some great investors in your fund. New capital's come into your fund. Who are some of the LPs in your fund?
So we've been very lucky in that we get to work with some of the best investors on the planet as LPs. So we've recently announced Fred Wilson from Union Square Ventures has joined, or Union Square Ventures has joined Multicoin as an LP. Fred was gracious enough to announce this via blog post. He's one of my favorite bloggers. I've been following him for 10 years now.
Your thesis on investment in utility tokens today, are you a utility token bull? Are you investing in ICOs, for example, or new utility tokens?
So we are really focused on investing in native tokens of smart contract platforms. And the reason for that is that we think that assets become money by being used as money. That's thing number one, right? I'll take you through a list of assumptions. So thing number one is that assets become money by being used as money because it reinforces the story of this thing is money. Anything can be used as money. It's just that two parties need to agree that this is worth something, right? Yes. So we believe that if it is used more frequently as money, then more parties will agree and it reinforces the idea in our head that this thing is
Perception
money.
is reality.
Exactly, right? So that's number one. Number two is I think that there will be a lot of crypto native use cases, things like gaming or prediction markets or like other just things that we don't even know that we want yet. Because a whole new design space has been opened up with the creation of smart contract platforms. And we're seeing this huge rush of really talented, intelligent people run into the blockchain space who want to build a career here. And they're going to build amazing things that we don't even know we want yet. So I'll give you an example. I was a kid growing up in the 90s, and I remember we had two really important rules. One was don't meet people from the internet in real life. And two was don't get in strangers' cars, right? But to illustrate how difficult it is to predict what people will build with a technology like the internet, when I leave here, I'm literally going to summon someone from the internet and get in their car. That would have been insane to think about 25, 30 years ago.
We're creating applications that we didn't actually know we needed, or certainly stuff that we couldn't have imagined that we were going to create. But when you talk about the native asset of protocols, which are your favorite protocols today?
So some of my favorite protocols today, of course, Ethereum. I've always thought that Ethereum was a fantastic protocol. And
despite the scaling issues that they have?
Yes, I think that this is not a comment on price. I think that the Ethereum network is one of the most amazing things that humanity has ever actually created.
So Ethereum is one?
Ethereum is one. I'm a big fan of EOS.
Why are you guys such big fans of EOS?
I think EOS is running some really interesting experiments. For example, under the new constitution for EOS, there is the ability to have basically regulators as a service. There is a free market of regulators or arbitrators that you can choose to bind your transaction with. So for example, if you were to have security tokens on EOS, you could choose that all of the transactions that you and I do, or any of us do, regarding this security token is bound to the regulatory authority of a party that we agree on and pay for that privilege. And then that regulatory body can then overturn transactions that were fraudulent or provide other protection from hackers or attacks like the DAO, right? So wherever there is a dispute between the intent of the code and the actual outcome, like what happened with the DAO.
You can choose a regulator.
You can choose a regulator to undo that. So if the DAO had been subject to a arbitrator or a regulator from the EOS ecosystem, it wouldn't have been a messy hard fork to undo it. It would have been, well, all of the parties in a free market agreed to have their transactions bound by this regulator, and you can choose one of any regulator, right? You can choose one regulator for your ESCO contracts, you can choose another regulator for other types of contracts. It's up to you. The DAO would have been far less messy because you would have just been able to.
Yeah. Now, what about the criticism that they've been getting that they're not decentralized? And if you've been reading all the posts on Twitter, you've got EOS not decentralized, ordering its miners or its block producers to do certain things. Yeah. What about all this criticism? I mean, do you think that they are decentralized? Do you think that they need to be decentralized?
They are exploring a different place on the trade-off between decentralization and scalability. It reminds me very much of the way that Bitcoiners thought about Ethereum when it launched. And especially how they thought about Ethereum after the DAO hack. Crypto is an industry with really short memory. And it's because things move so quickly, right? I can't blame the industry, it's just that things are moving so fast, it's really hard to remember. But I remember the DAO hack, right? And I remember how the Bitcoiners saw Ethereum at the time. And they were like, this is too centralized, Vitalik made this decision, and this was a bad decision, you should not be doing this. And it sounds eerily similar to what we're hearing now. That being said, past performance is no guarantee of future results, right? There's no absolute certainty that this will turn out the same way. But I think that looking at those just mainstream reaction criticisms is not the best way to make informed decisions. I think you need to step back, think about this from first principles, understand that they are choosing fundamentally different trade-offs. They're trying to build something different. EOS is not going after Bitcoin. It's not trying to build the same thing as
or
Bitcoin.
Ethereum.
It is going after Ethereum.
Okay.
It is. The EOS platform would be very happy if people started moving from Ethereum to EOS. Absolutely. but they're not going after Bitcoin. They're going after a different value proposition. And it's just something that, once again, we just don't know that we want yet. Like, developers haven't built anything on it yet, really. There's some proof of concepts, but I mean, it's like a month old. There are a lot of things that are enabled here that we just don't even know that we want yet. And for me, the most compelling piece about EOS is the huge design space that it opens up that was just never possible before.
Tushar, thank you very much. I know that crypto may have a short memory, but crypto Twitter doesn't have a short memory. And everything that you've said here, you will be called on crypto Twitter. That's our good friend Tushar Jain, and he really is one of the smartest guys in crypto. With all the talk about EOS and the block producers, whether they're centralized, decentralized, whether there are problems in the governance, I decided to go to Korea and find one of the EOS block producers. Orchid, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on our show.
Nice to meet you.
So let's talk about what it means to be an EOS block producer. What is it? What does it mean?
Okay, EOS is well known for DPoS, delegated proof of stake. And then block producer is, there are 21 block producers in EOS blockchain who's making blocks constantly. And then if you reg producer in EOS blockchain, then you can sign up for the block producer. And if you sign up, then voters, the token holders, would vote for you. And if you get a lot of votes, then if you get to be the one of the 21 top, then you become a block producer. So your node would start producing blocks from then. And I know a lot of people from other blockchains saying that EOS is actually centralized because of there's only 21 node producers, right? As you say. But I think decentralization is comparatively, it's a comparative, and it's actually more decentralized than Ethereum, where a few, what should I say?
Nodes.
A few nodes are taking their part. So 21 has the same chance of producing blocks. In that sense, it is more decentralized, I would say.
There's been a lot of allegations that EOS has been decentralized, and I think you've answered that question okay. What does it actually mean to be a block producer? What do you need in terms of hardware?
So you need to have nodes on several places in the world, of course, and you should always be ready. If your nodes get down, then you should be able to recover it.
If I understand correctly, every transaction is validated by 21 nodes, right?
Yes.
But there are more than 100. There are more than 21 nodes for EOS.
Yeah.
There are probably 100 nodes for EOS. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's called standby block producer.
And the standby block producers get voted to confirm blocks?
No, they're not. If the one of the 21's nodes get down, then standby ones would come up instantly.
Now, there's been talks of governance issues amongst the EOS nodes. What is all the talk about?
As decentralization is slow, I mean, the discussions are getting slow because it's not centralized, right? One of the issues is that there is interim constitutions that all token holders and block producers abide by. And by community voting, you can change the constitution, and also by registering for block producer, you also abide by BP agreement, which is in the Ricardian contract. So if you don't abide by the rules, then it becomes kind of an issue.
So have you guys had heated debates of late around certain rules? And if yes, what are the rules that you've had heated debates around?
So there has been a heated discussion of ECAF, which is EOS Core Arbitration Forum, and it is in the constitution saying if there is any arbitration issues, then ECAF will have their ruling. So, but then who is this ECAF members, and who would are they going to be elected or not? There has been some issues around ECAF, and also for block producers, many exchanges, I mean, including Bitfinex, Huobi pool, they're coming up, but there were some unknown people that just got up just by getting their whale votes, not in the block producer calls. So we're
it sounds
just
like there
asking
are
about-
one or two problems. One last question before we go. Is it profitable to be an EOS node validator?
Yes, I would say yes. But you have to have a small team. Get a small team so they can spread it, right? So there's basically vote pay and block producing pay if you're on the block producer. So if you're producing blocks, you also get block producing pay. And we got about 10,000 EOS a day when we were producing blocks.
Wow.
So yeah.
So it's really profitable.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for giving us that insight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.